Welcome to Nuka Nights. Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great time in the wasteland. If you want to support Nuka Nights, make sure to like this video, subscribe the channel and activate all alerts. This helps the YouTube algorithm to spread the video and grow the channel. Today I want to show you a new build guide, Katniss Everdeen 2.0, Bloodied Archer and Melee build. Katniss Everdeen is a female archer in the Hunger Game movies, and I thought this name and theme would fit well with the character and the build. The first Katniss Everdeen archer build I set up was in 2020. It worked in a lot of situations, but not everywhere. I now expanded the possibilities of the build and solved the problem with the build by combining it with melee. One problem with the bow is the slow fire rate. Similar to Rifleman, you have difficulties with it when you're standing right directly in front of several enemies and may also be discovered. This is where melee comes to play. As soon as the bow is too close to the enemy, you can switch to melee. This build plays both bows and melee in stealth mode, as the bow is also very quiet and contains the keyword has silencer. All bonuses for sneak attacks are included and optimized for the damage. The only compromise you have to accept in melee with this build are the mutations. Since most enemies are fought with bows, the focus is on herbivore and melee damage cannot be maximized with meat buffs. However, you can still use strength buffs and chems. A pure carnivore melee fighter is therefore definitely stronger than the close combat of this build. This build is bloodied, which means it uses about 80% radiation and only 20% health points. By using unyielding armor, it gives us better sneak ability, more strength for melee, more luck for critical hits and more action points for the use of VATS and while sprinting. Also, the mutation adrenal reaction will increase our damage a lot. Full life may be possible, but not with comparable efficiency. Now let me show you how I play the bow. Basically, shooting the bow is comparable to a charging weapon like the Gauss shotgun. First I get into sneak mode to get all the sneak bonus. Then draw the bow and hold the trigger. Activate VATS, release the trigger to fire the shot. When VATS is active, you can continue shooting. You can also draw the bow, jump, activate VATS and release the trigger to shoot. And as you can see, although I'm jumping around, I'm still hidden. Bows have a theoretical range of 300, but this is hardly usable in practice, as the arrow falls to the ground very quickly. This makes it very difficult to hit with the bow from a distance while aiming. It's not a problem in VATS, where the flight path is automatically calculated and you hit very well. The fire rate seems slower in first-person view than in third-person view. Try it yourself. For me, the third-person perspective is optimal choice for the bow. This way you can shoot quickly one after the other. Here you can see the build shooting super mutants on Fastnacht. This clip was really popular as a short around Fastnacht. And here's an example of the combination from bows to melee. So now I was shooting the super mutants with a bow, and here's one that I sneak up and hit it with an unarmed gauntlet. It's from the Settlers. As you can see, although I'm not a carnivore build with melee buffs from carnivore, I can still one-hit those super mutants here. So now I'm switching back to compound bows. And if enemies get too close, I can get back to melee anytime. And this is how it performs against the Storm Goliath in neurological warfare. By the way, I'm not using overly generous perk here, just the strength buffs and fury. Perk Overly Generous deals huge radiation damage while using the auto axe, and there's a bug on the Storm Goliath currently that makes them very vulnerable to radiation damage, but we don't want to rely our build on a bug. That will be fixed soon, so we will better rely on strength. So let's talk about the buffs. The first is the Steeped Fern Flower Tea, which gives us +5 strength and which can be used beside whiskey. Next is Fury, which gives us +30% melee damage, +25 damage resistance and a -5 perception penalty. The build uses a full unyielding Secret Service armor. The perks are far away from god rolls, but it's still usable. It has some parts with AP refresh, 1 poison resistance. I'm using an asbestos and 1 jetpack torso and legs with ultralight build. And the arms are using the brawling mod to get more unarmed damage. To play unarmed melee in sneak, I'm using this gauntlet, which is available from the settlers and which is the best unarmed melee weapon. On bosses, I'm using this Bloodied auto axe, which is not a god roll, which should have been 40% more damage on power attack. You can also use other unarmed weapons like this Deathclaw gauntlet, for example, or just for fun, maybe also a Nuka Shank combat knife. The Nuka Shank knife was a midweek reward, by the way, and is a tradable plan. Now I'm going through my compound bows. I'm starting with my limp damage bow, which I use to make the Scorch Beast land. Next is the Bloodied crit damage and explosive arrows bow, which is great to deal high damage and hit more targets in events. And the third one is the Bloodied crit damage and +1 agility compound bow, which is great to deal high damage while sneaking and which is the best choice against Scorched and the Queen. And if you're wondering what outfit this is, it's the Vault Survivor outfit. It was a season reward back then and sometimes may get back to the atomic shop. I'm using 2 versions of the chemist backpack, depending on how big I want my quiver to look like, but mostly I prefer the leather quiver. The Underarmor I'm using is the Vault 33 Underarmor because it gives strength, endurance, intelligence and luck, which is good for melee damage and also for critical damage. If you'd like to know, the other parts of the outfit are this antiquated tiara and the Raider eye patch. And now I'm finally explaining the skill set. But first let's get into the legendary perks, because the use of our special points is based on this. I maxed out perception, intelligence, agility and luck, so I need 5 points less in each special category. Also I'm using taking 1 for the team, because when I'm detected I want to deal more damage, and I'm using follow through to deal more damage while sneaking. Back to the perks. We have 15 strength and we start off with Martial Artist. It makes our melee weapons weight 60% less and we can swing them 30% faster. Next is Incisor, which gives us 75% armor penetration, which makes anti-armor weapons on melee with this perk not very useful, since we have a maximum of 90% armor penetration. Blocker is an absolute must-have for melee builds, which makes you much more resilient to melee attacks. Next is Bandolier, which makes our arrows weight 90% less. Iron Fist gives us 20% more unarmed damage. And Sturdy Frame just gives us a little less weight on our armor. Next is Concentrated Fire, which grants us plus 20% hit chance and plus 3% damage for single shot weapons, which is not clearly stated on the perk card. Next are Archer, Expert Archer and Master Archer to gain plus 60% damage on our bows. Bow Before Me is basically the tank killer card for bows and gives us 36% armor penetration and 9% chance to stagger. Next is Fireproof, which makes us take 45% less damage on explosions and fire. Radical gives us up to plus 5 strength depending on our rats, which is perfect for Bloodied builds. Party Girl triples the effect of post-war alcohol, which means we can get plus 6 strength from whiskey. Strange in Numbers increases the positive effects of our mutations by plus 25% if our teammates are mutated too, which gives us a lot more strength and damage. Nerd Rage is essential for Bloodied builds too, because while you're under 20% health, you gain 40 damage resistance, plus 20% damage and 15% faster AP regeneration. Next is Demolition Expert to boost the explosions of the arrows by 60%. Since the electrified auto axe is an energy weapon, we can use Science, Science Expert and Science Master to gain plus 15% damage on the auto axe. Next I'm using Through Hiker to have less weight on food and drinks. It's not essential but nice to have. Ninja is absolutely essential for this build because it gives us plus 90% damage on melee sneak attacks. Covered Operative is also essential for this build and gives us plus 50% damage on sneak attacks with the bow. Next is a Sneak perk card, which makes us harder to detect. Escape Artist gives us the ability to disappear from the enemy in plain sight just by standing up and crouching again. It also lets us sneak very silent. Gun Fu makes our VATS switch automatically from one enemy to the other when one is killed. Goat Legs is not essential but comfortable since we are not using Bird Bones mutation on this build. Better criticals because we want plus 100% bonus damage on our critical hits. Serendipity lets us avoid 45% damage while we are under 30% health. Class Freak suppresses the negative effects of our mutations by 75%, and Stark Genes lets us keep our mutations. Critical Savvy fills our critical meter faster, so we can hit more critical hits. And Good with Salt prevents our food longer from spoiling. You can also use the Cryo Fridge that you can get for gold at the Raiders. Now let's talk about the mutations. Adrenal Reaction gives us more damage at low health. Eagle Eyes increases our critical damage by plus 75%. Electrically Charged shocks melee attackers. And Herbivore gives us more advantages from plant-based food, like Blight Soup for more critical damage. Herd Mentality gives us plus 3 on all specials when we are on a team. That can also be solo on a team. Marsupial lets us jump higher and carry more. Speed Demon gives us faster movements. Talons gives us plus 35% more unarmed damage and bleed damage. And Unstable Isotope gives us the chance to radiate melee attackers. Now let me show you how the buffs work in Pip-Boy. This is the strength currently, 39. And when I use this Steeped Fern Flower Tea, get a little bit more rats to get into Nerd Rage, then the strength goes up to 44, and you can see when we're now using some whiskey with plus 6 strength, we're up to 50 strength, and this gives us quite good melee damage. And at the same time I'm also using the buffs for the bows. We want more damage on critical hits and more AP regeneration. What we get by using Company Tea and Blight Soup. And another great thing about this build is the carry weight. We have already 485 carry weight, and we can still use a carry weight booster to get even 50 more carry weight. So in the end we can have more than 500, about 535, or if you can get more strength, even more carry weight on this build. That's all for this video. Make sure to check out nukanights.com. You will find all ongoing and upcoming events, current daily ops, new codes, current season progress, articles about the latest event rewards and topics, as well as some tools like an interactive action points calculator. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.